Welcome to a battlefield of minds. Two grandmasters face off where every move cuts like a sword. One mistake, and it's over. This isn't just chess. It's war disguised as strategy. Let's dive in, move by move, into this epic clash. Wesley pushes e4, launching his central spear with calm confidence as the battle begins to heat beneath the surface. Zhou answers f5, staking his claim in the center, and signaling he's ready to stand toe-to-toe with Wesley. Wesley develops nf3, striking at the f5 pawn while bringing his knight forward like a seasoned frontline commander. Zhou replies n-cheeks, reinforcing the center and preparing flexible development as the tension steadily grows. Wesley plays bb5, pinning the knight sharply and tightening silent pressure on Zhao's central fortress. Zhao counters nf6, developing with purpose and challenging Wesley to clarify intentions on the kingside. Wesley castles o0, securing his king and preparing to ignite rapid activity on the central files. Zhou surprises with nc4, grabbing the pawn boldly and testing whether Wesley can justify his aggressive setup. Wesley strikes d4, hitting the knight and seizing space as he tries to punish Zhao's adventurous capture. Zhou retreats n-deeks, tucking the knight back defensively while keeping material in hand and structure intact. Wesley captures bx6, snapping off the defender and damaging Zhou's pawn structure to shape the mid-game terrain. Zhou responds dx6, restoring balance in the center, but accepting a long-term weakness that Wesley may target. Wesley pushes dx5, ripping open the center and pulling Zhou into sharp, forcing lines that favor precise calculation. Zhou counters nf5, hopping into an active post and applying counterpressure while hunting tactical chances. Wesley captures qx-knight, trading queens immediately and dragging Zhou's king into the center for the long fight ahead. Zhou plays kx-knight, accepting the queen exchange, but leaving his monarch exposed in a restless battlefield. Wesley develops b3, strengthening the queenside structure and preparing smooth development with patient precision. Zhou replies n7, rerouting his knight toward better defensive squares to weather the coming mid-game storms. Wesley plays c4, expanding energetically on the light squares and tightening control across the central board. Zhou brings n6, aiming the knight toward aggressive posts as he searches for counterplay in unfamiliar terrain. Wesley pushes h3, securing g4 and preventing annoying pins while preparing a solid kingside foundation. Zhou develops bd7, bringing another piece to life and preparing to coordinate his forces for the coming clashes. Wesley plays nc3, reinforcing the center and accelerating development toward a powerful middle game stance. Zhou answers kiite, sliding the king toward relative safety, while keeping rook connections within reach. Wesley places n2, preparing flexible maneuvering and shifting pieces toward critical central outposts. Zhou strikes r8, zitzing the open file, and placing the rook in direct confrontation with Wesley's setup. Wesley responds r-done, meeting the challenge head-on and contesting the vital d-file with fearless resolve. Zhou plays b7, completing development and bracing for the tactical storms approaching from multiple directions. Wesley develops b3, placing the bishop on an active post and eyeing future operations on both wings. Zhou pushes e6, questioning Wesley's bishop and preparing to reclaim some queenside space before the center explodes. Wesley sidesteps cat2, tucking his king away and quietly preparing kingside activity for deeper battles soon to unfold. Zhou pushes a5, creating luft and space for his king, while hinting at potential kingside pawn advances. Wesley advances g3, solidifying his kingside pawn chain and preparing flexible piece maneuvers for the upcoming tactical fireworks. Zhou develops b8, retreating his bishop to safety while keeping defensive lines connected for future counterplay. Wesley moves kjtoku, coordinating his king with the pawn cover and setting up latent pressure on the kingside. Zhou plays rx stone, trading rooks and simplifying the center while trying to reduce white's attacking potential. Wesley recaptures rx stone, maintaining central control and keeping the initiative firmly in his hands. Zhou advances r-gate, placing the rook aggressively to contest open lines and threaten lateral infiltration. Wesley develops b-cone, rerouting the bishop towards safer, more active diagonals for mid-game operations. Zhou pushes b6, preparing queenside expansion while shoring up his pawn structure to avoid tactical collapses. Wesley answers b3, centralizing the bishop and reinforcing key squares as pressure builds steadily. Zhou moves b7, positioning the bishop on the long diagonal to contest central and queenside influence. Wesley plays c5, challenging black's pawn structure and restricting bishop mobility while probing for weaknesses. Zhou pushes bx5, capturing and opening the b file while trying to untangle his cramped pieces. Wesley jumps nc3, eyeing strong central and queenside squares while preparing tactical motifs against the black king. Zhou plays b8, repositioning defensively to shield his king and coordinate with remaining pieces. Wesley reroutes na4, looking for activity and exploiting open squares for potential knight invasions. Zhou responds b6, contesting central squares and trying to stabilize a position that is under mounting pressure. Wesley captures bx5, removing a key defender and cementing positional dominance with clean tactical clarity. Zhou replies bd5, centralizing the bishop and hoping to generate counterplay against white's active forces. Wesley plays bx7, exchanging to simplify while preserving an edge and weakening black central king defenses. Zhou recaptures k7, bringing his king further into the open, reluctantly accepting exposure to white's heavy pieces. Wesley jumps nc3, aiming to occupy strong central posts while keeping flexible options for attack and infiltration. Zhou pushes e8, contesting the d-file and trying to create tactical tension in a position slipping away. Wesley captures next d5, a forcing exchange that simplifies the center while keeping a sharp initiative on the board. Zhou recaptures rx d5, keeping material balance while opening files that white can exploit. Wesley plays re-on, centralizing the rook and threatening infiltration along open files, with controlled aggression. Zhou Jianchao fight, rerouting the knight defensively to protect critical squares and block white's potential breakthroughs. Wesley advances Archon, swinging the rook to the c-file to dominate open lines and restrict black's king activity. Zhou slides k7, trying to find safety while maneuvering under relentless white pressure, a cautious yet risky step. Wesley jumps n5, leaping the knight aggressively toward black's kingside, threatening forks and tactical motifs. Zhou plays arc c5, capturing a central pawn to relieve pressure, while inviting complex tactical exchanges. Wesley strikes nx f7, a tactical thunderbolt forking king and rook, dragging Zhou's monarch into a perilous open space. Zhou responds re2, activating his rook in a desperate bid to counterattack and create defensive threats. Wesley shifts rc5, placing his rook on an open file to invade black's position and intensify pressure relentlessly. Zhou captures rx2, grabbing a pawn to offset material imbalance but leaving his king vulnerable. Wesley captures rex5, opening the h-file and pushing a powerful kingside assault into Zhou's exposed monarch. Zhou retreats k7, moving his king toward relative safety while remaining dangerously exposed. Wesley places n5, centralizing his knight to dominate key squares and restrict black's tactical options. Zhou swings rc2, seeking counterplay by activating the rook into the heart of white's territory. Wesley pushes h4, advancing the pawn to pry open lines and set the stage for decisive infiltration. Zhou thrusts c5, striking in the center to create counterplay and attempt to deflect white's focused attack. Wesley slides r5, positioning the rook to control open files and coordinate threats with knight and pawns. Zhou rerouts n6, shoring up defenses and trying to block white's infiltration along key squares. Wesley storms h5, aggressively pushing pawns to rip open lines and prepare the final kingside blow. Zhou repositions re2, maneuvering the rook to defend and create potential counterchecks, though options are dwindling. Wesley surges g4, a pawn wave threatening to break black's shelter and fully open lines against the king. Zhou steps k6, marching his king into the center to escape threats while facing growing tactical danger. Wesley replies nc4e, checking and forcing the king into constrained squares while tightening the tactical noose. Zhou retreats k7, trying to evade threats while remaining exposed to white's coordinated heavy pieces. Wesley advances d5, pushing the pawn forward to continue opening the kingside and restricting black's knight mobility. Zhou defends re4, activating the rook for defensive purposes, attempting to challenge white's penetrating forces. Wesley repositions n3, redeploying the knight to control central squares and support decisive attacking formations. Zhou pushes a5, creating queenside activity as a last-ditch effort to generate counterplay. Wesley plays kg3, improving king activity to support attacking pieces and prepare for endgame dominance. Zhou thrusts a4, pressing pawns on the queenside to distract and slow white's attacking momentum. Wesley captures bix a4, regaining material and maintaining clean structure while preparing final assault. Zhou responds Aksafur, grabbing a pawn for counterplay, but remaining vulnerable to White's coordinated attack. Wesley pushes g6, advancing a dangerous passed pawn threatening promotion and opening lines near the king. Zhou races c4, pushing a passed pawn for counterplay, but unable to distract White from his decisive kingside pressure. Wesley fires rf17, delivering a crushing check that drags Zhou's king into the open and tightens the tactical noose. Zhou retreats Kadite, seeking shelter while remaining painfully exposed to White's coordinated heavy pieces. Wesley storms h6, pushing the pawn decisively to rip open the last lines around Zhou's monarch. Zhou captures gx6, reluctantly accepting the pawn trade but further exposing his king to lethal threats. Wesley powers d7, a lightning passed pawn racing forward and forcing Zhou to react immediately. Zhou plays nx6, capturing the pawn in a desperate attempt to slow White's unstoppable attack. Wesley recaptures rex87, bringing a heavy piece into the heart of Black's territory and maintaining overwhelming dominance. Zhou pushes sk3, racing a pawn toward promotion as his final attempt at counterplay. Wesley calmly plays kf3, activating his king to support pawns and pieces while marching toward the decisive endgame. Zhou advances, a5, pushing pawns, in desperation, to create distraction and hope for tactical chances. Wesley plays rg5, cutting off escape squares and coordinating rooks with crushing efficiency toward Zhou's king. Zhou responds h4, advancing the pawn to delay the inevitable, but his defensive resources are exhausted. Wesley finishes rg4, sealing the victory as all counterplay vanishes, and Zhou's position collapses under relentless pressure. The video ends here. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate your time. Please don't forget to give this video a like and subscribe to the channel to support me. Thank you again, everyone. See you in the next video.